his wares that few other guitar players had.
He honestly did.
He could go on and do his own session anytime.
Right, and he did country, he did jazz, he played with orchestras. He was really very, very good at mastering, the guitar. And then his brother, I think it was Charlie Atkins or something like that, it was the one Les Paul played with. But for me, Les Paul was a little different, more along his line, was really a guitar person. Now, whereas BB, I think BB, like BB says, he plays, one or two chords, and that's basically it with BB.
Yeah.
A little bit different.
Les Paul had that down to an art.
Yes, he did.
He could go in and read charts, or he could wing it. Whatever he needed him to do, he could do. And for many years there, Les Paul pretty much was his own entrepreneur. He would just send the finished product with him and Mary Ford over to the record company. They'd publish it and be a hit.
Well, that's pretty good. I noticed
yeah,
here.
Right. So they didn't bother him much.
Okay.
Other than when's their next song going to get here?
And he put out a lot of songs.
A lot of tunes. And, one of the things, we've talked about all these great things Les Paul did, but, the one thing that I admire more than anything else, and I guess it's because I'm getting up there in age myself, not nearly that old, but he was still working, a year and a half ago.
He was still working actually in 2008. And perhaps, I don't know, he may have actually played in the jazz clubs in New York this year. I know he played in late 2000.
Yeah, and in fact, there was somebody, I think it might have been, one of the best salutes, I think, was from KMOX in St. Louis. And it's interesting that that was one of the best salutes because back in those days, in the Midwest, if you're broadcast-oriented, you went to St. Louis, then you went to Chicago,
Yes, he did.
Yeah, well, that was the career path for everybody.
Okay.
It's kind of the way it worked.
It's kind of strange with St. Louis.
Well, it's just right up the road.
Well, yeah, but, St. Louis, I guess radio was there, but as far as the jazz, Kansas City.
Oh, yeah. Well, Kansas City was famous for it.
Because Charlie Parker was there.
Sure.
Fellow out of your area down there, McShane, who recently passed away. He was out of there and was still out of there. Lived a long, long, long time. But the thing is, St. Louis, kind of a stop between.
Well, I was thinking more. I was thinking more in terms of not necessarily the jazz genre itself, but just pop music.
Okay.
And you come out of the, like an orchestra, you play at the Chase Hotel, and the next thing you know, you'll be at the Aragon Ballroom or someplace.
You'll be in Chicago.
Yeah,
evidently,
right.
he was there in St. Louis when we started. This our research was with that particular radio station he has brought up there. But they announced that, and they were talking about. Let's see if I can grab that screen. They were talking about. He worked with high-tech Bob Hella, I guess is his name, was on that station for 25 years. Anyway, they're both in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with him out there, and that was at the KMOX in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting. I mean, the standpoint that how he moved on from there, Chicago, and finally on to New York. Now, I also see here that in 1950, a little before my time, he had his Les Paul show. It was a 15-minute show on NBC.
Well, a lot of people, back in those days, even up to 55, 56, 57, a lot of people had 15-minute shows. Perry Como even had one.
Yeah, he had one. Yeah, I recall his show.
Yeah,
In fact, I think he graduated up to a 30-minute an hour show, did he not?
That was quite an interesting format back in those days. It was kind of like, but of course, broadcasting. We did a show recently about broadcasting. Broadcasting was different back then. The sponsors pretty well called the shots, and so they could buy 15 minutes a heck of a lot easier than they could an hour or a half hour. And so they would sign the talent. The advertising agencies themselves were mainly the producers. The networks basically just furnished studios and their leased AT&T lines out to the radio stations.
So in other words, you were going to have a show.
It's kind of like what we have now. We call it the vanity radio. Some talk show hosts do this. They buy the time and then resell it.
Okay.
That's kind of the way it all worked back then.
Yeah, actually, did I say TV show? We actually a 15-minute radio program. Sorry about that. I was thinking of the TV shows. I don't know if he ever had a TV show, but doesn't say anything here. But yeah, the radio shows. A lot of people had radio shows.
Oh yeah, that was one of the requirements, I think, once you got kind of established.
Okay, but you'd get a
little radio show, and didn't use that, to work on things.
I can recall.
And that same format reason we got off on TV, as I mentioned, that they were still doing it on TV in the 50s.
Okay. I can recall hearing Les Paul and his band, many times on TV. He would appear, with various other of acts.
Well, he was a big star before Les Paul and Mary Ford in the music circles, not in the general population necessarily. Mary Ford and he with multiple recordings, and this technique hit the top 10 quite regularly, so they became big stars there. Then after his separation from her, a lot of people had given him up, but he still worked a lot.
Evidently he did. He won 2 Grammy Awards in he won these 2 Grammy Awards of 48 Grammys here, and it says in 2006, that's when he returned to do some live performance.
I mentioned 2005. It was 2006.
2006, at 90. Yeah, at 90, and and he just continued on working. I'm assuming on the weekends or what have you. Working.
I think he worked as much as he wanted to.
Yeah,
and
in fact,
a lot of people probably,
here.
The amazing thing here, we talked about at the beginning, 1915 when he was born. And you talk to people who are 30 years old, born 1979. Les Paul was already an old man by then.
Oh, sure.
And they don't really remember him.
No, but working some of the clubs, he was, in fact, I see here, he did, there was a tribute at Carnegie Hall to him, so you had Steve Miller there, and of course Pete Frampton, and some of those people, and maybe we'll get a little in our, when we search the music.
And I've never heard whether or not, and I've never read whether Les Paul liked hard rock and roll. I think he did to a certain extent because all guitar players like to get a few licks in. But modern rock and roll would not be around if it hadn't been for Les Paul and the electric guitar and the developments he made and the multiple track recording techniques.
Right. No doubt about it.
Those two things have you reached through all genres, from rhythm and blues to country to pop, to you name it, to jazz.
Yeah, B.B. King and Lucille basically would not have been around.
Right.
So, yeah, no Elvis, no that. I guess Michael Jackson would have still been dancing, though, and singing.
Yeah, I was just looking at some of Michael Jackson's work. We were converting it to our iPod TV page at jerrypippin.com.
Okay.
And
you've got video over there now.
Yeah, right. And I was looking at looking at the whole 14 minutes of Thriller, not just the clips.
Oh, I see.
And it's just incredible, Michael Jackson and his skill.
Now, getting off to a little bit here, but Jerry, when did you institute your video iPod part? I knew you had the iPod.
It's a work in progress right now. It's getting really big. We made a deal with this production team that we're doing the documentary for.
Okay.
And they have all of the commercial latest product.
Okay.
And they do commercial work for regular broadcast houses and production companies.
Okay.
And we've got some good video already of some shows we're doing that rival really anything you see on the web. I hate to pat myself on the back like that, but I'm not really patting me. It's Anthony and Robert Miles of the Fast Walkers production team, and in fact we spent some time today.
Okay.
This on the technical end of this. This is far beyond anything that an old radio broadcaster has ever been involved in. And we basically we're just trying to stay up with the crowd and doing things in widescreen, so that the iPod itself, the coming thing is going to be you slip this iPod, and a lot of people are doing it already, into what they call a dock in your apparatus for your home entertainment center.
Right. And
the big wall screen.
Oh, I see. I got it.
Fills up with whatever you're doing.
Oh,
and
I
so
see.
we're making stuff compatible to that.
Now, are you just confined to the iPod or any of those devices? In other words,
no, any devices. The Zoom came out with a new device this week too.
Okay.
That handles it, but mainly the iPod is the big seller.
Right, and the others are coming along.
And they've been arguing over formats. Now they're getting a little more compatible.
Yeah, the formats.
And our product, we were Microsoft originally with Larry Dickin, and it's gone well past that. You and I have discussed that.
Right, right. Yeah, you move now more mainstream. Of course, the thing is,
we don't want to leave any of the Microsoft users out of there because that's still the majority users of the PC.
Right, but they moved to the MP3 format, and of
right.
course, new.
And we do that, and we still do a Windows format compatible for everybody, just simply because a lot of people don't. And of course, naturally, ultimately, it'll all be Flash. It looks like
Flash is out there, and that's especially for the what we call smartphones, the iPhone and that sort of thing. Well, you've done some work with the iPhone, and there is conversion. Get off a little bit of Les Paul, but this is a little bit about innovation. There are I suppose various software products out there will convert one format to the other format. So in other words, we can put your Michael Jackson Thriller on the lady's iPhone we were talking about.
Yeah.
So she can get it too.
That's her objective.
We will, and obviously you have that kind of technology coming up there.
Yeah.
Now, and I see you have also got past the licensing hurdles, of getting this stuff up, because even YouTube, had some problems. I imagine they've had some problems with that.
You have to make kind of side deals with everybody, and that's too bad.
Right.
Because, first of all, that's time-consuming.
I bet it is.
It gives lawyers jobs, but legal people. But secondly, is it's not serving the artist in the long run. The artist thinks it is.
Right.
But what's serving the artist is in my opinion, the old tried and true formula. And that's exposure. And the only way you get exposure is through broadcast. And it really is not important whether the broadcast is internet, digital, or an AM radio.
I would agree with you.
The point is people got to be listening to it. And so if they're going to choke us in digital broadcasting down to paying so much per person as a performance right, they may win in the short term, but obviously no one can afford really to do that unless they make side deals. And
I would assume probably what will happen a lot too. There's a lot of,
and that's exactly what's happening. And pretty soon it's going to get so muddied legally, nobody's going to have any rights, because you'll have all kinds of things that have been determined by courts, which are in opposite of each other, and so basically, then people end up making any money are the lawyers.
Yeah, it's no doubt a spaghetti soup. I mean, When you say side deals, you're basically saying third parties that own